All right, hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy Ask Us Anything, episode number 24. I'm Stephen Barr and got Raul Subramaniam, and lucky to be joined by Darko Mesaroš. How are you doing, everyone?
Hey everyone.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I get my own intro and everything. There's like my name here.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Normally it's even a bit better, but my designer is out this week, so you can see that's my level of After Effects and not hers.
It's amazing.
It's always fun on this show. And thanks again for joining us, Darko. Really looking forward to a wonderful conversation today.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
So why don't we just kick it off with how was your weekend? What's been new?
My weekend. I had a lot of good food with my good buddy Cobus Bernard. He's my partner in this developer relations crime, and I've spent a lot of time just trying to relax as much as I can. You know, at AWS, this is the very busy season, especially in marketing.
I can imagine.
reInvent is literally tomorrow, in reInvent days. So I've been just kind of head down on all of these things, and I'm taking every much time I can use just to relax and do nothing. So yeah, mostly that was my weekend. Hopefully the upcoming weekend will be the same.
Yeah, I think absolutely all the rest is really, really deserved and required given the chaos that's about to ensue in just a few weeks.
Oh yes.
Steven, how about you?
Oh, it was good. I mean, I was going to say, Darko, as a fellow Seattle resident, how are you enjoying the drastic temperature change over the last week?
I am over the moon for it. I love it. So you cannot see me fully, but I have a permanent sweater I cannot take off for the last couple of years. I enjoy the cold. I enjoy the cold. Seattle was really hot over the last couple of months. Like I moved here a year ago, and like people told me, "Oh, you're going to a cold part of the world." Is this cold? So I'm very much enjoying the rain, the chilly weather. Now it's almost to freezing temperatures, so I am very, very happy. Here's to more snow.
Fantastic. No, it's I think people outside of Seattle think we're crazy. Oh, thank God the rain's here and it's cold and it's cloudy.
It's all I ever wanted.
On one of my trips to Seattle, I think there was a week of absolutely no sunlight.
Yeah.
It was just, cloudy and rainy, and I swear I felt depressed.
It's the sunlight in your heart that matters, Rahul. That's what we do.
I think you guys figured out how to store up all the little sunlight that you get for the rest of the year.
So this morning we had a bunch of sun. I think there's still sun outside. So I would just stand at my window for like 10 minutes, just like soak it up, and that's it. I'm done.
That's like your Superman power. You're just soak up the sun for the long term.
Exactly.
It's a funny. We just moved here from Australia, and so I think me and my family, we're all sun saturated. I think we'll never need another bit of vitamin D again.
I think you're good for sun for a long time now. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's switch gears over to some announcements, and we've got these little segment transitions, Darko. So here they come.
Ooh. I respect a good transition.
Well, and so if you notice, there's a little bit of a few frames at the very beginning that should trigger the recognition segment detection API. So then later we can chop this up into highlights.
Smart. I like that. I need to make a note of that.
There's an incredible amount of automation in here that Steven has put together. And we did 2 episodes of it, didn't we, Steven?
We did.
We talked about how everything is automated out.
We will have a third one eventually. Just wrapping up a few of the bits, but it's a blast. But we definitely make heavy use of recognition because I got really tired of chopping up the show into segments for highlights.
You gave me a great idea. I need to figure out how this works now.
Well, let's talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a few things to announce. Let's see. We've got some reInvent talks coming up. So you've got BA 202. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
So BA202, BOA 202 is basically
BOA.
build on AWS 202 is about open source tooling on AWS. It's not necessarily on AWS. It's basically some open source tools to help you on your cloud adventure, right? That's kind of a thing. So, and there's a special thing to this presentation. So, it's not going to be your typical PowerPoint 97 type presentation. I'm actually going to deliver this entire session with my good buddy Curtis Evans, all in Minecraft. So the entire presentation
awesome.
is going to be
Clever.
presented in Minecraft. So it's just about little tools, knickknacks that can help make your life better when you work with the cloud. That's it. So that should be pretty
I'm
fun.
so looking forward to this one.
So if you get a chance, go there. It's pretty fun. You get to see me stumbling around on Minecraft. So
Awesome. Looking forward. And then that goes with your series Build on AWS Live.
exactly.
I'll put the link in the comments here. How is that going?
So Build on Live is something that kind of has been brewing in my head for a while now. I started streaming when the plague began, right? So when we stopped traveling, when I wanted to speak with people, I wanted to deliver content. So I found streaming was pretty good for that. And one of the things that I've made a point of doing is that if you're going to live stream, you should live stream for the audience you're live streaming. If I stream on Twitch, it needs to be focused on the Twitch folks. So that means making content relevant, making it very much down to earth, and making it very interactive, right? It's not going to be a PowerPoint presentation on Twitch. So Build on Live is basically that. It's a series of live streams, both weekly and periodically, about specific topics, which are basically tailored to fit on Twitch. This means, again, being technical in nature, being not too serious, and just having a good old time with the wonderful chat there. So hello chat
Yeah.
on both Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and Twitter.
Awesome.
Well, awesome.
So, Darko, what fundamental difference do you see in the audiences that you typically see on Twitch versus YouTube versus LinkedIn? Like
I would say Twitch and YouTube are relatively the same. You have the similar type of audience. Like you will see these like people who are technical, who actually spent a lot of time watching videos, and they are
Got it.
ruthless. They will let you know what they think, which I really appreciate, right? So when I see somebody on YouTube or Twitter just, I wouldn't say screaming at me, but saying like, I think this is not good. I think you should change this. I take that to heart because, they're quite honest. When it comes to
Got it.
LinkedIn is a bit more of a serious crowd, not in a bad way, but like people who are potentially not 100% technical, but are here to enjoy a good technical discussion.
Got
So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty neat.
It is just a great thing. I love this. Again, thank you for having me on a live stream. I'll live stream all day if I need to.
Tune in to Build on Live. And then,
Exactly.
Ro, you've got a talk coming up as well.
Yep. So I am talking about cost optimizations, and this is PRT 086, which is all about finding savings. And we are heading into some tough times and might just be relevant.
That's insane.
Any organization that has AWS resources running, there's typically a bunch of stuff that's low-hanging fruit, easy to get, gets you a bunch of savings realized, and then there are things that are harder. So it's just, we're talking about 15 years of our experience doing this across 45,000 AWS accounts that we manage. So just bringing some of those insights and learnings to the audience. So looking forward to this, actually.
That's Wednesday, November 30th, 5:35 p.m. And that is the cost optimization track. And then what building is this one in?
That's a great question. I think we need to post it in the
Yes.
following thing, but
In
I
the
think
show
it's
notes,
in
sorry.
the, yeah. Give me a second. While this is going on, I will pull up the details.
Perfect.
I want to make a comment about cloud cost optimization. I think that's a very important topic that not enough people talk about. I think cost optimization is something that as you keep on building on the cloud, you just keep putting it in the back, and most of your costs are actually coming from legacy stuff you've kind of built in a really
Yeah.
fast way, and just like, oh, that just works now. Doesn't matter. It doesn't serves a purpose, but you can do so much more to optimize it.
But Darko, is there anything that you don't build in a fast way? I almost feel like anytime that you're building something in the cloud,
Elasticsearch
Yeah.
clusters.
you're literally just experimenting nonstop, and you're constantly iterating,
Yeah.
and stuff gets old over a period of time, and you forget about it. You forget about just turning off some machines. At the other end of the spectrum, you have AWS that's constantly announcing new and better services and new and better infrastructure that you should switch over to because they just become cheaper and more efficient. So I think it's kind of a multi-dimensional problem, and it is hard. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So
tag
I'm
your
looking forward to
resources,
sharing
folks. Tag your resources, folks, so you know what's spending money. No, looking forward to the session.
Yep. Look forward to having you there.
And we have a few other ones. We've got our keynote watch party. Ro, maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. So we have the keynote watch party that we are hosting. This is for the 3 keynotes. One is Adam Selipsky's keynote. We have Swami's keynote around machine learning and AI. And then the third one is, what's the third one we're doing? We're doing the Werner Vogel's keynote, which is all about developer best practices, or usually about that. We'll see what it is about this time. And so we're going to host a watch party. It's going to be a pretty neat space where we are hosting this at the, it's either going to be at the Nobu Villa or it's going to be at the Nobu Suites at the Caesar's Palace. And we're going to have food, drinks, and a whole lot of geeks just, listening to all these keynotes and then trying to figure out what we do with all of that, all these amazing announcements next. So if you want to geek out, if you want to have,
with some
really
sushi.
deep technical conversation and potentially good sushi, come on over. Just DM us and we'll send you an invite, and we'd love to have you at the suite.
And then also, Rahul and I, we're going to be live streaming 7:30 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then a wrap-up stream 5:30 p.m. Thursday evening. We've also got the FinOps Roundtable discussion. That's on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday?
That's correct.
Wednesday.
This one is going to be, FinOps Roundtable is actually on Tuesday. So this is on Tuesday. And I'm really excited about this. We have all the big hitters from the FinOps Foundation who are going to be there. These are all real practitioners who've been implementing FinOps across their organizations for many years now. And they bring a lot of deep insights into this conversation. So I'm really excited to host this. We're going to have GR, of course, and we're going to have a few other folks. So please come on, either log in to the live stream or come on over. And we'd love to have you as we have the live session in person.
Well, awesome. All right. Well, with that said, let's switch over to one of the first articles, and then I think that'll anchor the first bit of the conversation. So I've got another good transition queued up, and then let's have a chat. Here goes. All right.
So before we actually dive into this specific one, so Darko, just some context.
Okay.
So every week we of course, like everyone else, we get bombarded by this fire hose of AWS announcements. And what we try to do in this particular segment is pick 5 or 6 of the ones that we think are really neat, ones that we want to discuss.
Okay.
And we do 2 things. The first one is we give it a tag of either something that we believe simplifies the world of the developer, that one, or it complexifies it. It's a complexity alert. Sometimes, there are announcements that just confuse the hell out of the audience.
Oh, yes.
And
Like tiered pricing, but different tiers for different architectures.
So that's basically what we do. And then we also pass a little bit of a judgment about how well the blog post was written. Does it really make life of developers simple or not? So you are our special guest today. So we will let you decide how many clouds the article gets at the end of it, and discuss whether it's going to be a simplifying or a complexifying announcement.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, AWS PR, I'm sorry. Continue.
No, we'll own the ratings.
And we actually do this from a place of, great admiration for the AWS teams. I mean, a lot goes into putting all these stuff out. We just want to make sure that things are easy and simple for the developers who are going to consume it. And we couldn't be more excited.
And then, Ro, as a self-described AWS super fan, I think, I think that's a good. You're coming from a good place.
Okay.
Exactly, it's coming from a good place.
Okay.
Great. So let's start with the first one.
All right. Well-architected tool improves workload discovery and speeds up reviews. I just put the link in the comments.
Yeah. So in this particular one, there are a bunch of interesting integrations with Trusted Advisor, Catalog, App Registry. So what this basically does is it pulls out all of that information and plugs it into the reports, the well-architected reports, and allows you to not have to kind of manually gather all this information and put it all in these reports. If anyone has any experiences with the well-architected framework and all the dimensions or pillars of the framework and filling out all those, it's how many thousand questions now? I forget. The last time I looked at it, it was an insane number of questions to answer and go through. This just makes it easy because a lot of that stuff comes pre-filled for you using the tool. The automation gets that to you, so you don't have to go fetch it manually. And yeah, I love any automation that makes your life simple. So yeah, any comments, Darko, Steven?
So I used to run well-architected reviews a lot. I used to be a solution architect, so that was one of my jobs, is that I loved doing them. I think they're fantastic, but definitely one of the things that's being mentioned is that you kind of never know what kind of workload are you reviewing. You ask these questions, then and the customer would say well, yes on this and no on that. So I do think when you do a workload discovery like this, thanks to something like your app registries, definitely helps out on that one. So yeah.
I guess that's what you're saying right here, right? There wasn't a clear link between the workload and its associated resources, right? So you can.
Exactly. So it was usually kind of we were guessing a lot of things, but if you can actually tie a specific resources to a workload and review it as such, again, if customers would tag things properly, it would be better. But this helps a lot.
Agreed. But also the Trusted Advisor integration makes it really simple to bring in all those best practices, the status of the best practices, whether they're being followed or not, into the report. So that makes life really, really simple.
Yes.
Sometimes I felt like in the initial versions, especially, the well-architected, tool kind of felt more like one of those psychometric tests where you answer something with a certain answer in one place, and then the same thing is asked in a different place in a different way, and then it's always like a test to see whether you are consistent or not.
But I would say when it comes to the well-architected tool and the well-architected framework, my biggest love from that is the questions you ask. You ask questions and then discussions. I mean, it takes a lot of time. Coming from an ops perspective and people running this thing, it's a big chunk of your time to do these reviews. But if it can help you do this, I mean, automate some of the stuff, integrate Trusted Advisor, definitely this one should simplify lives of engineers out there.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So what are we going to rate this?
I mean, I'll give it a 4. The only reason I'll give it a 4 is that I do think there's a lot of value that comes out of the pure discussion about well architected rather than automating everything. So that would be my rating here. I would give it a 5 in some different universe, but I'll give it a 4.
And then but this is definitely, I would say this is definitely a simplifies, right? I mean, the whole point of this, it's there if you want to use it, it's going to help you. Correct. And if not, it's not going to, the existence of it, if you don't use it, it's not going to hinder you in any way. So
Darko, let me ask you this. As a practitioner of the well-architected framework in some avatar of yours in the past, what would you say is your number one feature request of the well-architected framework? Like, what was the biggest pain point that you had that you wished got implemented as a feature?
I think sometimes, and this is if I had a magical button that I could push that will implement this magical feature, is that it can actually give personalized recommendations based on the workload it looks at. Sometimes it is very difficult to do that because it's very difficult to standardize workloads. So having more prescriptive guidance on, hey, listen, if you want to fix this problem, here are the exact steps you need to do. Of course, that would be like an idea, like it would look at your workload and, potentially, hey, change this instance ties to this one, or this is how would implement, here's a CloudFormation template that would per month deploy a new instance type with some base metrics based on your whatever. So like that kind of a thing, more automation and more personalized recommendations for a given workload.
But I feel like you might not be that far away from getting to that magic wand because you already have kind of the compute optimizer, the Lambda optimizer, and a bunch of these other tools that are available for those specific kinds of workloads, which might be the easy ones to start integrating with.
It's getting there. Absolutely. It's getting there. But like one of the biggest discussions that always sparked during these reviews was backups and resiliency.
Oh yeah.
And like, I would ask customers, do you have backups? And they say, oh, absolutely we do. Do you test your backups? Oh, absolutely we don't. like ways to help customers actually implement backup and resiliency testing more is something that I would love to see.
So that reminds me of a little story. One of my first little side gigs, I was about 15. I was doing a little bit of consulting work for this small manufacturing firm.
Okay.
And the lady who was running their entire contacts database had this procedure where every single day she would click through this form to back up the Excel spreadsheets to a floppy disk. She'd archive that, write the date, write the time. But then embedded in her procedure, she was ignoring a certain warning. And that warning was basically that it wasn't actually writing to the disk. And so I did a little check of her system and did a test restore. And I told her, hey, all these beautifully indexed, color-coded, labeled floppy disks are all blank. And the sinking feeling in her face, I will never forget that.
Oh my God.
And luckily we caught this before an accident. It's test your backups beforehand.
Oh my
God.
Let me bring up procedure.
Oh man, I've seen so many of these incidents. So let me bring up a little point of contention. Historically, I found that the backup scenario, just by nature of the people kind of being responsible for it, it just almost never gets exercised the way you would want it, or the way a situation ever presents itself. Like you almost always find yourself a little short of the way you implemented your processes because you just couldn't predict what kind of disaster would happen. So I kind of took a different approach where I started telling all of my teams to forget about backups and instead just focus on high availability.
Okay.
So if you focus on making sure that all of your stuff is really highly available, then you're kind of already building in all the contingencies that you can think of. You're building in all the redundancies you're thinking of. So the concept of the backup kind of becomes redundant in a certain sense. And the more of these managed services you use, the less relevant some of those backup, the old school backup strategies become. As long as you're backing up your database, you're backing up, some basic configuration and source control. That's about all you need. But high availability ensures that you are testing all of your redundant systems all the time and architecting for it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, so there's two types of backups. There's backing up for resiliency, and there's backing up for reliability. When you have a highly available system, you back up for, reliability. That's you're kind of okay on that side. But if you made a mistake and intentionally changed data, and you wish to roll back, this is where a backup actually comes in handy, right? Like a data backup. So from that perspective, that backup is important because I worked in systems where people would run SQL commands on a database that would completely blank out one column, and it's just like, okay, what do we do now? So if you have no backups of that, that's a problem. Yeah. I want to take a tangent here and just talk about an example of the most ridiculous backup I've ever experienced in my life. Just because it's a backup that works no matter what. So I used to work in a government agency back home in my home country of Serbia, in a court, whatever. And we had this like department which handles land plots, like who owns which land plot in the town.
Got it.
And we were running all of the data on an old Unisys Unix server. I believe it was running Oracle 5 data, like something ancient. Mind you, that was 2009. This was 2009, so it wasn't so long ago, but the systems were ancient. And I was responsible for managing the systems. But we had an old Unix admin who would come once a month and perform a backup. The backup was you take the database and you print it out. You print out the database you take one of those dot matrix printers and just box of paper and just print out the entire database. And I was blown away by this. And I asked the guy, so how do you restore? Well, here's the database. You just take the database and you type it in. I'm like, okay, I guess. It's a fully working backup. It's not the most efficient one, but hey, it works.
It's a backup.
It's a backup.
It might just take you a decade to restore all the land records if something were to ever happen. But
So you mean this wasn't
it's a
paired
backup.
with some OCR solution?
No, these were the OCRs, right?
Yeah.
So-
Manual.
yeah, but yeah, that's the weirdest backup system, and it worked. I mean, ultimately, if something went wrong, we could have restored, but it would take a while. So yeah.
All right. Well, that was a really
Very
fun
interesting
segment.
stories.
Do we have anything else to say about this one before we switch to the next one?
No, I think I like this one. So let's move on to the next one.
All right.
Good
The
point for you to
next
go through.
one is going. Well, hold on. Let me get to the screen. All right. Here we go. All right. Let's put the article here on the screen. This is a short and sweet one. This is EC2 enables you to opt out of directly shared AMIs. So starting today, you can remove your AWS account from launch permissions for an AMI that was directly shared with your AWS account.
Correct.
So let's see. This is reduce the likelihood of launching an EC2 instance with an unused or deprecated AMI that was shared with you earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I
From a
really like that. They
compliance
put the
stand-
intended use case right there.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So I think from a compliance standpoint, this is absolutely awesome. There was a time that we tried Service Catalog, but then trying to build Service Catalog with every single, AMI or cloud formation template that you permit and keeping it all up to date. That's, to be honest, that's pretty hard to do and takes up a lot of time and effort. This is pretty neat because, there are a bunch of times when you have an AMI in one particular account. I mean, we have in our world, Darko, we have to deal with about 40,000 AWS accounts.
Yeah. Exactly.
And when you have an AMI that's shared across accounts or from external, and you suddenly find that, there's a problem with the AMI and you want to deprecate it, it really helps now that you can literally just, disconnect the account or disconnect the share from that account, which is, I think this is the lifesaver because by habit, your developers are going to go to the old AMI. They're used to it. You might have wiki documentation that says, hey, this particular product, go to this particular AMI and launch it. And a lot of the problems that you see in your infrastructure might continue to persist just because of that behavior. And changing everything else just takes a whole lot of time.
Exactly. Basically, this introduces some sort of guardrails that like, basically prevent you from launching something you don't want by accident. And again,
Yes.
accidents will happen. You can be as careful as you want, but somebody, especially as you say, 40,000 AWS accounts, something is gonna go wrong. So I think this is a cool feature. I think it's a simple feature that just solves one thing, and I like that.
I absolutely love it for that.
Yeah.
And the announcement is simple. It's easy to digest. It's relatively straightforward. Can you click on how you actually enable this?
That was my question as well.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So Steven,
Here we go.
Let's click on the.
And sorry, I was fiddling with the light earlier. I've rearranged my office because I'm shooting a video behind me, and like Darko said earlier, the light's changing a lot. So I had to try and close the curtain subtly, but I guess it wasn't so subtle. So sorry.
We have the sun now.
Yes. It's like having to adjust the white balance. All right. Cancel having an AMI shared with your AWS account. Let's see, adding accounts to launch permission. Cancel image launch permission AWS CLI command.
Yeah.
When running this command, your AWS account is removed from the launch permissions for a specified AMI.
And this is just a simple API call. Again, you from what I understand, you just give it the AMI ID, and you can actually automate this. I think this would be part of like automating things in an organization where you would just kind of remove specific accounts from accessing specific old AMIs. And there is a reason why you would keep some accounts with the shared AMI, because you want to do some legacy testing or consistencies or whatnot. But
yeah. This is one that I would imagine should just run anytime you create or you've identified an AMI. You should have a standard SSM document that you add to Change Manager and just execute it. So that way, across your accounts, all of those, the AMI is basically just prevented from launching across all your accounts. And recommendation, Change Manager would be the way to do it. Right. Don't try to do something elsewhere. It's just going to cause you a whole lot of other pain. With Change Manager, you can audit it all in one place. You know exactly what SSM documents are running, and you have a lot more control by doing it over there. And appropriate approval processes as well.
Exactly. Ultimately, you can unshare an AMI, but that causes additional complexities, right? Because you have to handle multiple accounts, and you have to send. Again, it's possible, but I think it's more complex than doing this, because this is, you only need to know the AMI ID, and you just run this command in the desired accounts. So that's
exactly. So instead of doing this from the source account from where it is being shared, here this is the target account, which allows itself to be disconnected from that AMI, which is an incredibly valuable feature.
Exactly. So if you have an account which is just an AMI factory, which I've seen just have AMI factory accounts, don't have to touch that account at all. That account will keep on sharing, but the other ones just will not accept.
Correct. So your rating on this one, Darko?
A 5. As an operations person, thank you so much.
Sorry. There we go. 5. That's fantastic. And I agree. It's simple, it's short, and it tells the intended use case. I think this is an obvious simplifies, right? This makes life a lot easier. Prevents you from doing something stupid and then doesn't hurt you otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely simplifies.
One request that I have to the AWS team is, I think one of the things that I've realized is most customers of AWS actually haven't heard about Change Manager, and they don't understand how to use it. Yeah. They don't understand the mechanics of it. Given that these are fundamental change management requests, I think it would be great if with each one of these announcements, AWS had this little SSM document that is your default, change manager request. It's certified by AWS. You can take it as is, plug in your AMI or whatever the specific parameters are, and then apply it to Change Manager. It would make life so much simpler for most AWS customers.
I fully agree. And I think Systems Manager is just one wonderful box of tools that is just full of different type of tools that can help you, but it's I feel like people again don't talk about it too much. I used to do presentations on Systems Manager because I think it's just a wonderful box of tools for all of the ops people out there. But I agree.
Correct.
Definitely, it would be a good feature to have a document come out with a service like this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick 30-second break, and then we come back. We're going to be talking about SES and there's a new announcement with there. We'll be right back.
Public cloud costs going up and your AWS bill growing without the right cost controls? CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by focusing on AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe with zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. The best part? With your approval, CloudFix finds and implements AWS fixes to help you run more efficiently. Visit cloudfix.com for a free savings assessment.
All right, here is the next article. Let's see. How's that?
It's good.
Here we go. Simple email service announces virtual delivery manager to help enhance delivery success rate. This is a big deal. I've got a friend who's working on a business all about monitoring email delivery success. It's a huge issue. So the idea of being able to look at that and have that analyzed, that seems like a really good thing. Virtual Delivery Manager offers insights with at-a-glance reporting on sending and delivery data in the SES console. Bounce rates, opens, and clicks. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. I think this is incredibly valuable in terms of email sending toolkits. We actually used to have 2 Class B IP address ranges that we had to manage just for sending out email addresses because they had reputations attached to them that had been built up over more than a decade. And that became the number one factor in preventing a lot of the emails being classified either by spam or just being rejected outright. And then that was layer 1. Then layer 2 became, understanding what content would end up being spam. Or classified as spam by Google or Yahoo or one of these other email services. So the fact that all of this is now integrated, SES already sends out emails via a set of AWS managed awesome reputation IPs. And then that with all these other layers of insights about content and whether they're likely to be marked as spam or not is pretty amazing. So I think it just makes it so much simpler to manage campaigns. I assume that these would also automatically be available in Pinpoint. If not, I think that's a gap that should be closed very quickly.
Right.
But incredibly valuable. I don't know if many people who are continuing to use SES kind of in vanilla mode, because typically this becomes really useful when you're doing campaigns, and Pinpoint is what you end up using when you want to do that.
Exactly. I think that's my whole point. SES is a wonderful service, but sometimes it looks like it's just a black box. You just send out emails and you hope for the best. But if you have this deliverability manager, I think that's just great. It makes it more easier, at least to have a visibility of what's going on.
Correct. I'd be curious about what kind of checks it does before you start sending out your campaign. Yeah. Is this like a post? Like a lot of the metrics in here seem like post delivery or post send metrics.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be great if we could use some kind of ML based on all the mails that have been sent to say, this is the likelihood of delivery for this particular email? That kind of personalization to bring into this. So you have a campaign, it immediately says probability of delivery is 98%.
Yeah.
And here are the things that are likely to cause it to bounce. That'd be amazing.
I mean, that would be amazing. Absolutely.
Thinking about it's funny, just kind of zooming out for a moment. We hear from a lot of, I suppose, Darko, you and I probably identify this. Again, we're about the same age. People younger than us, are we in this post-email world? Are we in this post? But then look, we zoom out. What are the important protocols? Email. Hey, IRC is still going strong.
Yep. Exactly.
And
I think
Yeah,
I mean,
these fundamental backbone protocols have proved resilient over the long
email
run.
exactly. Email is here at least for the time being to stay because like I trust email more than other delivery methods, right? Like I wouldn't trust a Twitter message to deliver me my bills and receipts or my invoices. I wouldn't
Yeah.
trust, a social media post to do the same thing, or Slack or Discord. So definitely email is something that's critical. Even when it comes to just doing advertising. Now, I'm not in the advertising space, but like I'll rather read an ad from an email than having it on a social media site. So because when you're in email, you're in email mode, right? You're not browsing Twitter for ads. You have a different state of mind when you're browsing Twitter, but when you're on email, you kind of are in that thing where you would actually read emails.
Yeah, exactly. And then plus you're kind of empowered to throw whatever you want at it on the client side, whether it's machine learning
Yeah.
or I don't know, just whatever filters you want to. Whereas if you're doing that on a social media with some type of, I don't know, it's not supported,
Great.
right? You have to ingest the whole thing, whatever they hand you.
Yeah, and also email is actually quite rigidly scrutinized. Like if I get spam from somebody and I mark them as spam, or a lot of people mark them as spam, their emails will not get through anymore. So the things that's being sent via email, at least in the year of 2022, looks way better than some of the social media posts I get.
All right, look, we're getting a little bit of pushback
Yeah.
on my comment here.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, of course.
Good. All right, glad to hear that. Well, I guess that's it. We are not in a post-email world.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
email will work. I'd say in 50 years, we'll probably still have email.
Absolutely. So
My,
remember, kids, email is not secure. Just so you know, email is
Right.
not secure.
well, my first job was at an email hosting place, and I still remember. I probably still could send an email by telnetting to port 25.
Yeah.
You telnet to port 25. You say ehlo, AHLO.
Correct.
You say hello to the server. You log in and you send an email. It's amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
back in the old days, you could run an open SMTP server as a charitable service to your neighbors.
Of course.
By the way, my biggest nightmare of being in the computer science field, I don't know whether you guys ever set up a SMTP server from scratch using the O'Reilly book. So O'Reilly had a SendMail book, and it was about 800 pages thick.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, that book itself would give you a nightmare. That was just configuration of SMTP. And it was such a
If you can
nightmare.
find it.
And back in university, we used to have professors who would basically decide. And I don't know if it was just to taunt us or it was some other. Yeah, that was the one. That's about 800 odd pages. I mean, it's seriously this thick.
Wow.
My hands are huge. So when I say this, it's really thick. You could use it like it was like a brick that you carried around with you. But our professors used to basically, since we managed the lab, they'd basically say, one professor would say, okay, this gateway server, I'm going to sit on that machine only. And I want my mails. Of course, back then we only had Pine and you had to drop in, it was all terminal based stuff. So they would want their emails to be dropped into a folder on a particular machine. Someone else had to be, wanted it on a different machine. So you had to have SMTP relays set
Yep.
up that would take your emails and it would go through a chain of different hops before you would decide with rules where to drop your email. I mean, it was a nightmare, but hell, I learned a lot.
That's crazy. I mean, I also love the wonderful oxymoron here. It's the simple mail transport service.
Oh yeah.
And 800 pages. So yeah, fun times.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think I had better learning than that. Like I learned everything about computer networks in just setting up SendMail or SMTP relays all over the place.
I just need
my-
to buy that book now.
My learning came from at one point I think I knew the whole IP chains Linux 2.2 firewall rules. I knew that inside and out. That was my job at the time. That was so. It makes you really appreciate security groups when you can just, I'll just turn off this port. I don't need to write this strange incantation at the kernel level to do it.
I'm still confused by the term of masquerading when it comes to NATs and Linux networking. So yeah, fun times.
Absolutely.
So if you ever manage a mail server, be that SendMail or Exchange or whatever, SES is your friend now.
Well,
And
with that
respect.
context and with that history, what are we gonna give this article?
I would go to 4 because I would love the article to have more details on it. Like I would love to have a bit more, an example of, for example, this or that. So, but yeah,
that's all right. I agree. I mean, it's definitely a simplifies.
Yes.
This is great. More data,
Definitely.
helping you understand your email campaigns. All right, should we do one more? And then I want to save a bit of time to get into a shared interest of all of ours. Let's do one more article, and then that's SNS message data protection. And then we're going to jump into, let's jump into that. 1 second. SNS data protection. Here it comes. All right, SNS message data protection is now generally available with real-time data redaction and masking. This is kind of cool. Okay, public preview of message data protection. SNS message data protection is a new set of capabilities to do pattern matching, machine learning. Let's see, real-time data protection in their applications. I assume this is things like PHI, that sort of thing.
PHI, that kind of
Here
stuff.
we go.
So the thing is that services like EventBridge, SNS, and all become your gateway to distributing a lot of messages across different subscribers. And the last thing you want over there is proliferation of any kind of PII or PHI. And the fact that you can kind of, tackle that right at the source or at the point of distribution is pretty amazing. And I'm really glad it's right there because SNS and EventBridge act like routers. I don't know if this has been extended over to EventBridge as well. But yeah, the fact that you can have SNS now take care of this for you automatically is pretty amazing.
yeah.
I think this should go along with the Swiss cheese model, right? This shouldn't be your only layer of what separates PHI from the public, but it should be a layer.
Yes. Definitely. I think that's absolutely the case, right? So, and especially again, as Rahul says here, a lot of the stuff just goes through SNS. Right? We use that as kind of a transition point between different services, and yeah, I think this is quite useful for that.
Well, even for debugging, right? Like I've got some SNS topic that will spam to a debugging Slack channel, right? That I use that for debugging a lot, but it'd be really easy to leak private data into a Slack channel, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
So being able to, and luckily I don't deal with PHI anymore. I used to. That was stressful. The whole
usually
personal criminal liability thing that you sign when you start really makes you sit up straight.
Yep.
Generally, whenever the thing that I've kind of learned the hard way is whenever you're dealing with systems that act as routers or distributors of information, you want to have the absolute minimal information in there. Usually, if there's anything more than an ID, you start questioning it.
Yeah.
Because in an ideal world, what you want to send out is just an ID and have the system then call into whatever the master source is for that data and query it. And if they have all the right permissions, they can do it. So in the worst case scenario, if you have a rogue subscriber, even if they aren't authorized, all they have is an ID and they wouldn't know what to do with it. So as long as you make sure that the systems that you're distributing through an EventBridge or SNS or SQS or any of those systems where you can have anyone subscribing basically to those channels, you want to make sure that you have the absolute minimum amount of information in there, ideally just an ID and nothing more than that.
Agreed.
And that the ID is a one-way hash of the data and not reversible.
Correct. It's not even a full it's not even a Yeah, it's not reversible from.
Well, and not ordered, right? Doesn't
Not
leak the
ordered,
order,
yeah.
right? You don't want to be patient 00001.
Correct. Correct. So as long as you have that kind of a mechanism, I think you're better off from a security standpoint.
Cool.
Okay.
This one looks.
Do we rate this one? Darko.
Too many acronyms. Too many acronyms for my taste. PHI, PII, GDPR, and HIPAA. I would give it a 4 just because of I think the announcement should be simpler. But I'm sorry, the person who wrote the announcement.
Although,
I think it should be just simpler. Yeah.
I'm gonna argue for another half point up because
Okay.
they do expand all the acronyms, which is
Okay,
good, right?
okay.
If they just threw
Shall
them
we
out-
bring this up?
Oh,
Can we
sorry.
just bring up the
Yeah.
article? There it
Thanks.
is.
See, they do expand the acronyms. So that's well. That's really
Okay.
nice. So,
Okay.
all right, let's
Let's do
4.5.
Let's do 5. Let's do 5. I'll go with 5. I'll
Awesome.
be with 5.
Oh, and then anything that helps. I at one point had a stressful job that dealt with a lot of PHI. It's just nerve wracking, right? You have to. So anything that helps that stay out of the public. We were told again and again, each medical record has about $1 million worth of liability. I said, "Wow, this CSV file is worth like $400 million." That's I'm going to be really
CSV
careful
files?
with this thing.
You dealt with CSV files with all
Yes.
of that data in there?
Well, you know,
How
when
long
you
ago
try to do
was
some
this?
analysis with R or something, and just. Well, I want to do another segment that I think is really fun. And Darko, I've been following you on Twitter for a while. Tell us about your retro computing interests.
Oh my
I really
God.
want to know.
So, I collect a lot of old computers out of fun, and actually I do it because it's. I grew up in a country where we didn't have a lot of money, right? And my main and only computer from 1991 to 2001 was a Commodore 64, right?
Oh, cool.
And this was my main PC, right? I did not have a computer until 2001, and back in 2001, I got myself a Commodore, an IBM 486. So way past its time, and I kind of like really do enjoy doing stuff with old computers. So since I moved to the States, and even back there in Germany, I used to have a bunch of Amigas, Commodores, Sun workstations, SGI workstations over the last couple of months. And
By
what
the way,
I
I
find
saw your post on that one.
Yeah?
That's an Octane, right?
Yes, I have a busted Octane. I got a busted Octane for free, but I do have like an Indy and an Indigo too. So for those of you who do not know, SGI, Silicon Graphics, yeah, that's the one. Silicon Graphics was a workstation producer back in the 90s. All of your 90s 3D graphics, Jurassic Parks were done on Silicon Graphic workstations, and they were insanely expensive, like $50,000 for a workstation. I know some game studios who would buy Silicon Graphics machines, and they would just keep them running all year round so they can pay them off.
Terminator 2 was rendered on one of these things.
Exactly.
Right?
Correct.
Exactly.
That was the Industrial Light and Magic. You know, I remember watching it, how it was the behind the scenes of that movie. I think, I need one of those. That's so cool.
And it's interesting. Like the Indy I have, it has 143 megahertz CPU, but it runs really good even today. Like it runs an old operating system, a Unix-like operating system, but like I can do stuff on it. I can literally, I wouldn't be able to run a workweek on it, but I can do most of my development and command line stuff on it with ease because it just works.
You could fire up Vim and IRC and
Absolutely. and like go ahead.
Yeah, I used to love the interface and the large monitors that came with the Indigo and the Octanes. Like
Yes.
for that time, like for most of us who are used to green screens, you know, like most of the regular utility terminals would all be green screens. And then you had these Octanes and the Indigos that would have these super big CRTs, color CRTs at that, which were just absolutely stunning and impressive for the time. And the interface, having the windowed
13W3. Yeah, okay, that interface, yeah. Yeah, so like it worked
awesome.
really good. I mean, like even today, I would like run a 3D graphics application on my Indigo 2, and it works really fast. It's like weird how good it works from a system that old. I have a 21-inch Sun Microsystem CRT,
That must weigh about
70
50 pounds.
72 pounds it weighs. It's insane. It's like, what is that, like 30 something kilos?
Crazy.
It's very heavy.
I miss those good visceral days of. I remember hauling one of those to a LAN party, and right, there's something fun about I remember seeing a power supply blow out the back of the computer, and you smell those capacitors. Oh my gosh, you put everything on the same circuit, right? There's a certain visceral nature that we don't have anymore that I really miss.
Exactly. And like I also like to kind of like look at these things and see, again, they're useless as production machines, but like I like to see, can I do something modern on them? When I say modern, I mean, can you push the system to its limits as much as you can to do stuff with it? So for example, right here, I have a Mac SE30, right? This is a fully working system, which I got recapped, cleaned, and all that fun stuff. And the fun thing is, I can sit with it and I can do some C programming on it. I have a full C environment on it.
Nice.
Works, right? I mean, it's not very productive, but hey, it's a fun little experiment.
Those are running the 68,000s, right?
68,000. Yes, 68,000. This is the 6840 on this one, I believe. Yes. But the thing with the Mac SE30, it's a weird system because it was launched in 1991 or 1990, and it could take 128 megabytes of RAM, which is unthinkable for that time, but it could do it. And people actually sell ROM adapters that enable you to do that. So I do have only 48 megabytes in this one, but I do have the ROM adapter, so I need to find myself more RAM to do stuff, which is, again, insane amounts of memories for this.
128 MB of RAM. In 1998, I had 4 MB of RAM on my 386 DX266. So that was a 66 megahertz machine. And that 4 MB of RAM cost like 3/4 of the cost of the entire machine.
Exactly. So like seeing those things, and again, I'll say this with the biggest, I understand, but we all have so much resources, compute resources these days.
Oh, completely.
If you need more resources, you have literally unlimited compute resources in the cloud. And this is where we as engineers and developers and builders, we started getting sloppy with what we do, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. We should not no longer be counting CPU cycles. I fully am with that. But sometimes when you work with these old systems, you need to like step back and say like, okay, am I using it very efficiently? If like, am I doing things? So I think that kind of an art is a bit lost on people. So I like to kind of reminisce in doing those things. Yeah.
Raul and I were talking about the 112X large instance. Oh, maybe that could run Microsoft Teams without being laggy.
Maybe, I don't know. but that's the thing. Like people like a lot of these new desktop applications are just basically Electron wrappers for HTML or JavaScript, which again is good, but it can be more efficient, right? So like,
yeah, I mean, you think, how in the world does like a simple app use nearly a gigabyte of RAM? Like, didn't all of SETI run on this 15 years ago? Like,
exactly. So, Space Invaders. This is a game for the Atari 2600, right? The old brown box console thing. So the Atari 2600 has. Can you guess how much RAM it has without looking it up?
I think it had like a few hundred KB, I think. Right? It had
128 bytes of RAM.
120 bytes.
You can count up to 128 bytes of RAM. So this game would run on 100. Of course, it has its own RAM in this thing, so it's a bit skewed. But I used to do some homebrew development for an Atari 2600, just as an exercise in how things used to be bad. So, for example, right, today in the modern world, if you want to draw a pixel on the screen, if you're using C++, Golang, Rust, you basically have a library and you tell it to draw it on X and Y.
Yeah.
This is the pixel. The same was true for Commodore 64. You tell it where to draw a sprite. On the Atari, no, that did not exist. So the way you do draw a pixel on a specific point on a screen, let's say 40 by 60 pixels screen resolution, you count the lines on the TV. You basically count the number of times the beam goes across. You reach the row you want to draw on, and then you count CPU cycles by the time the laser, the beam will reach that point, and then you draw. So crazy. Nobody should ever do things like that anymore. But like, that was an art. People did it back in the day. So
No,
I'm very enthusiastic about those things.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think for our generation that lived through all of this, it's really exciting.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that the newer generations are probably listening to this and saying, I don't know what the hell these guys are talking about.
Actually, and I really hope you never have to do anything like that. Like
Correct.
that again, it's just so much more effort and so much more complexity. But it did teach you like kind of some of the skills, like just learning some math and learning some ways to do
Yeah.
things in a very creative way. So yeah.
I was thinking about my 386, and I had a turbo button on it that would switch it from 8 megahertz to 40. And for
Yes.
some games, if you ran it in turbo mode, it was unplayable because it was too fast. Because, like you said,
Yeah.
you're counting on the timing.
Cycles, yeah. CPU
You better
cycles.
be
Yeah, yeah.
really good at Tetris because they're coming.
Yeah, like
Tetris
some
and Pac-Man were both. They actually used to count CPU cycle, at least the versions that I ran, and I went from 40. So my turbo button went from 40 megahertz to 66 megahertz on the 386DX.
yeah, so like those things were, and that's how you used to do things in the past. Of course, a lot of those things are abstracted now, and I'm not longing for those times. Like I will say, like also we abstract your infrastructure with the cloud. You don't have to worry about that, and that's a good thing. The same goes for this thing. But I think everybody can have a lesson in optimizing the things they do just a little bit better. So
Completely agree.
Yeah, 100%. That's all right. Well, and actually, funny enough, just to wrap this up, and actually, Darko, since we're both Seattleites, I'd like to invite you to do a. We host this Dev Spaces hackathon. It's our cloud-based IDE that we use, and so we just kind of hack on whatever projects you want to do, but using that IDE. But the next one we want to do, we want to restrict it to like Raspberry Pis, tablets, or anything kind of low power. So
yes, I do. Wait, I do have. Where are my Raspberry Pis? These are outdated Raspberry Pi ones. So let's do it.
awesome, and we order a bunch of Thai food, have some drinks. It's a good time. So I'll DM you about that.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
We need to have a showcase of our Raspberry Pi clusters. I am going to take my monitor from here, and I don't think I can get it there. I have an entire cluster behind that oscilloscope that you see over there,
Okay.
and that's running in. It's got 8 Raspberry Pis in a cluster.
And what is it? What do you run there?
So it runs Pi-hole, Home Assistant. It runs Octoprint.
Okay.
It runs a whole bunch of other services on the cluster. It was running Kubernetes at one point of time.
Okay.
But now it just runs a whole lot of my home services.
Okay. I need to share something with you all. Like maybe Steven can bring this up.
Yep, add it to the screen.
So I'm adding it to the. Wait, let me do the thing. Can I want to make it look nicer. 1 second. So I have a cluster. It's not a Raspberry Pi cluster. It's something else. It kind of fits into the whole discussion about retro computing. It's unfortunately retro. So share a screen. I'll do this. Wait a second. Dismiss. Close all the notifications. Share. Boom. Okay.
Okay, let's add that to the stream.
So I have a cluster running MacBooks from 2007.
Oh, wow.
These are 2007 Core 2 Duo MacBooks, like I think the first Intel MacBooks I got for free, and
man.
I connected them all up, and they're all running. Get this, they're all running ECS Anywhere. So what's happening here is that if you access this link, it's shut down right now, but like you could access this link, and it would actually route the traffic to these MacBooks running Docker and containers managed all by
Nice.
ECS. So it was,
That is really neat.
yeah.
I've
even
got to
cut
give
I even
ECS Anywhere a shot.
yeah, I even cut the wood down here to kind of.
Wow, that's really cool.
So this is my little thing, and I need to set it up back again because I had to tear down a bunch of it. But yeah, it's a fun little experiment with things should definitely not be running Docker, but they do. So
Well, it's cool to get usage out of this hard. Like, I've got this 2009 iMac in the corner, and it's beautiful brushed aluminum housing. The screen works fine, but you can't get OS updates for it. You can't really use it as a browser on anything other than like Hacker News. But,
I mean, one of the things you'll notice about old systems is they're not very power efficient, right? So these things they get you something, but not a lot. They're not very power efficient. So that iMac would be very cool, but probably waste more power than a bunch of Raspberry Pis.
Oh yeah. Here's my Pi. I've got my. I don't have a cluster, but I've got a Pi 400, which is the only Pi. It's the only one I could get.
You can't buy Pis anymore. You have to be insanely rich to buy Raspberry Pis these days. It's crazy, and it's sad because I like my Raspberry Pis and I want more, and I want everything to be a Raspberry Pi.
Not $140 for a 4B. That's a bit much.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like and especially like now in this world, we're trying to be all efficient and ARM CPUs and everything. There are alternatives, but the Raspberry Pi is still the Raspberry Pi. So I mean, I have this like I'm preparing some little blog post where I compare the performance on one system versus the Raspberry Pi 4. So I have a Raspberry Pi 4 running a web server and doing some performance testing, and at the other end I have a HP Workstation 4000 from 2004 running dual Pentium 4 Xeons. The machine, the Pentium 4, the Xeon workstation, is 300 watts on idle, just in BIOS, not doing anything, just sucking up power. So yeah, it's insane.
I mean, I see the same thing with so I have the old Mac trash can from 2011?
11? Yeah.
11 or so. And that one hogs so much more power. And I upgraded it to, the 12 core, 6 core chips, so 12 threads or whatever.
Yeah.
I've upgraded to the maximum possible configuration, and it crawls and hogs so much power. It's just absolutely insane. I hate to turn it on anymore.
That's what you get with old systems, right? They just eat too much power. Okay,
correct.
Well, we're big fans of ARM here. Actually, hold on 1 second.
Go. Now, if Steven shows,
I've
like
got my our C7G. This is for another video that I'm reshooting. I think Raul knows what this is. This is coming up. But this is we're big fans of the ARM. It is amazing how much faster and cooler and better.
Let's talk about processor architectures, right? So this is my collection of my favorite processors. You have the Motorola 68000, you have the 6502, you have the Intel 8088, and you have the Zilog Z80. So
that's a really neat display.
I have a collection of other CPUs there, which is currently not on display, but like I find like we just use x86 these days, right? And the ARM is coming up again, but like in the past you had so many different options, and like and for the kids out there, this is a Xeon. This is a Pentium 3 Xeon. CPUs used to come in slots, so you just plug this into your server, and then it just wastes power.
Do you have an Itanium?
1 second, let me see. I have a collection of CPUs. Wait a second.
Did you know that there was a time when I used to know all the opcodes on the Pentium machine?
Oh, really? So, like, I have a pallet of CPUs.
Oh, wow.
Do I have an Itanium? I have a Sun. I have a Motorola. I do not have an Itanium, unfortunately. I do have a huge Xeon, but no Itaniums, unfortunately. This is my favorite CPU because it looks the best. It's a Pentium Pro.
Oh yeah.
This is huge. Like
Huge.
comparing it to like a modern day CPU. So this is it's a Celeron, but it's roughly the size of a modern CPU. So like that's how bigger the Pentium Pro used to be.
The new AMDs and stuff are
They're
way
big.
bigger than this.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
huge.
yeah. They're
All
like
the
roughly
multiple cores.
roughly
Yeah, but
this
like-
size. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
those are pretty huge.
fun times, people.
Oh, thanks
We
for
gotta
sharing
have you
those.
back. Yeah, we gotta have you back on the show, Darko.
Thank
This has
you,
been
Rahul, and
so
thank you,
much
Steven.
fun.
I mean,
This has
I
been
can
so
live
much
stream
fun.
all day, and it's pretty cool. Please, thank you for having me. I would be happy to come back again.
Yeah,
Oh,
our
thank you so
pleasure,
much.
and thanks a ton. This is such a blast. Such a blast.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I think that's a wrap. We'll see everyone next time, and have a good evening, Raul, and afternoon, Darko. See
Hope to see you at
later.
reInvent. Bye.
Sounds
Have a
good.
wonderful day. See you all at reInvent. Bye.
Bye bye.
Is your AWS public cloud bill growing? While most solutions focus on visibility, CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by finding and implementing AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe. There's zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. We've helped organizations save millions of dollars across tens of thousands of AWS instances. Interested in seeing how much money you can save? Visit cloudfix.com to schedule a free